that Ukraine have to give some territory away to win peace?
Well, it depends what territory. They've been fighting. They've lost a lot of territory. And we'll do the best we can. Working with Ukraine, we'll do the best we can. But they lost a lot of territory. When you say Crimea, that was handed over during a president named Barack Hussein Obama. That had nothing to do with me, Crimea. That was 11 years ago with Obama. And they made a decision. There wasn't a bullet fired. There was no fighting. There was no anything. They just handed it over. Now they say, well, can you get it back? I think that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. That was given by Barack Obama when he was president, not by Donald Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I had a long meeting,
This
Mr. President.
proposal that you put on the table, it's a 30-day ceasefire proposal. The national security team presented it to both Ukraine and Russia. 2 months ago, Ukraine agreed to that ceasefire proposal immediately. Russia has not. And my question is Russia the obstacle to peace based upon that, just getting to that 30-day ceasefire?
I don't think so. I think that they both want peace right now. They're ready to do something. We'll see what happens. Complicated, very complicated. But I think they are both very much looking to make a deal. Marco, what would you say?
Well, first of all, what was put before our partners was options to discuss about things that it would take to end a war. This war is endable. Both sides just have to agree to it. We've shown them a pathway forward. We've discussed those ideas. There was a good meeting yesterday. There'll be good meetings over the weekend. We've shown them the finish line. We need both of them to say yes. But what happened last night with those missile strikes should remind everybody of why this war needs to end. It's horrible those missiles landed. What's even worse is there are today people that were alive yesterday that are not alive today because this war continues. And the president wants to stop it. And everyone should be thanking the president for being a peacemaker and trying to save lives. That's what we're trying to do here. It's not our war. We didn't start it, as you know. But we're trying to end the dying. We're trying to end the destruction. And we've shown the path forward. We can see the finish line, but both of them have to get there. We're going to do everything we can to help them get there, but they have to ultimately say yes.
And we are using a lot of pressure on both. You know, if you think we're just in there because we're nice people, and we are nice people, but we're using a lot of pressure on both.
What concessions, Mr. President, and to your national security team, what concessions has Russia offered up thus far to get to the point where you're closer to peace?
Stopping the war, taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
Man.
Oh, there we go.
I want to stick on that last one because that's a refreshing and very honest answer, Gary, because we've been talking, whether it's some of our guests that we've had or in conversations that you and I've had, is that Russia's in the dominant position. They don't have to have a negotiated settlement. They don't have to agree to anything. So to ask what concessions are they going to make is on the one hand kind of silly, but then on the other hand, if there is no end of deal, they're almost certainly going to continue to conquer. So by them willing to concede that we'll have a negotiated settlement that won't give me my maximalist options here, that actually is a concession.
It sure is. I've rarely seen a Trump that humbled, realizing that all his skill set isn't really bringing about what he wants. And he just has to concede as to what reality is dishing him. And here he is, in front of the world. Basically. Yeah,
I agree with that because the impression has always been that I'm the deal maker and I can make people agree to stuff that's just because I want it because of the power of my personality. And now
just watch me, right?
Yeah, and he gets a lot of stuff done. I give him props for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But this is a whole new category, and because the dynamics are just still that it's not a real estate. It's not a business deal. This is existential issue for Russia, so it has different rules. And
oh my gosh, I think he's getting smacked on side of his head like he never thought he could or would, and realizing and who he's dealing with. Right, Putin's not backing down, not an inch. Not that he should or has to. And I don't think Trump's ever been faced with such a conflict of this sort before, and obviously of this magnitude. My goodness, right? And at the same time, we know how much it's bothering him internally. He seems genuinely, troubled, deeply troubled by the death. So he's got that he hates that's going on, and yet at the same time, he's inept at being able to pull it off the way he wanted to pull it off. So he's ended up really just going to ultimately, just be capitulating in a way that he has to, because of, like we keep saying, how Putin holds the cards to the situation.
And and here's the irony, or interesting thing, if anything else, is that Putin, who does have the cards, who is in the dominant position, is still treating Trump with respect. And he's not like, in your face kind of thing, at least not what's being reported. Anytime he talks about it, Putin does in public, he's still focused on after the war and improving relations with the United States and moving forward, et cetera. And then on the other side, the guy that doesn't have the cards, who doesn't have the leverage, is acting like he's in charge. And he's just telling both Putin and Trump what he is and isn't going to do. And man, you keep going down that path, brother, you're going to find out what happens if Russia doesn't make a concession and does keep going on with their military. And that's not going to end up very well.
Yeah. How about this today? When I saw this morning, for him to call President Putin by his first name, hey, Vladimir, stop.
Yeah, don't think that's going to happen either. So that's one of the reasons we're really hoping to get the ambassador on. I don't know if he's going to join us here later. And just for anybody who's joining us here, he was supposed to have been with us, but he has been unavoidably detained. We don't know for sure if he's going to join us. If he comes in at any minute, we're going to bring him on, because we really do want to have him answer a few key questions in relations to all this. I want to look at one other thing of that last clip that you just played. That one of the questions that they asked Trump is, well, why didn't Russia agree to this 30-day ceasefire, this full unconditional ceasefire? Because Ukraine did, and then Russia didn't. So aren't they the impediment to peace? And he didn't answer it all the way. Rubio sort of got around to part of it, but only a little bit of it. And the point being that for Ukraine to offer a 30-day full ceasefire is because they need it. They are the ones that are getting pounded on the front line every day and desperately need to stop losing troops so that they can get more people, they can rest them, et cetera, and to have a chance to get this over with on terms that are beneficial to them. If you have a stop in the war, it's often harder to restart it, so that would be beneficial to them. There's no benefits to Russia, and they very clearly said that we're not going to have an unconditional ceasefire, period. They never even implied that they were going to do that.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, they've been saying that since January, probably even before January, right? I think we have some sound from Lavrov in December, either Lavrov or Putin. They said this way ahead of time. So to try and come to the table with, hey, we've got an idea. How about a little ceasefire? Like it was such nonsense. It was like, as you've always said, Danny, they haven't been, meaning. Well, my gosh, Europe hasn't been, but even Trump and his team really aren't listening closely. Let's at least put it that way, to what Putin, what Lavrov, the Peskov, what they've all been saying for months and months. They would have nothing to do with a ceasefire. It would be the worst thing in the world for the reasons that you were just explaining, that it would only amplify the ability for Ukraine to, re-engage, rearm, do all that, keeping their drone factories spinning up. So, so they're facing this implausible situation because they put themselves, they meaning Trump administration, have put themselves in an implausible situation.
And then they had lots of help from that situation from Ukraine and Europe. But I want to get to one of the things we really want to reiterate here. And when it gets to the whole issue about what you're going to agree to and what you're not going to, I mentioned several times that Russia has been on a position since the June 14th terms, which I mentioned a lot. And for those who may not have seen it, and to refresh those who may even have, I want to show you, this is exactly what Putin said on June 14th of 2024.
The essence of our proposal is not some kind of temporary truce or suspension of fire, as, for example, the West wants. This is not about freezing the conflict, but about its final completion. And I will say again, as soon as Kiev agrees to a similar course of events proposed today, agrees to the complete withdrawal of its troops from the DPR and LPR in the Zaporozhye and Kherson regions, and really begins this process, we are ready to begin negotiations without delaying them. I repeat, this is our principled position. Neutral, non-aligned, nuclear-free status of Ukraine, its demilitarization and denazification.
Now,
it's pretty clear.
Yeah, very clear and very detailed and unequivocal.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
that was nearly a year ago. Well, I think it was earlier today, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman for the Kremlin, came on and reiterated what the terms are that they need to have this stopped. It's going to sound a little familiar. Peskov laid out Moscow's demands from a ceasefire, for even a ceasefire, which include the full recognition of Russian claims over 4 Ukrainian oblasts it partially occupies: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, neutral status for Ukraine, and an end to all military support from the West. Quote, if Ukraine lays down its arms and withdraws from these regions, military operations will stop instantly, Peskov said. These 4 regions are inscribed in our constitution as an integral part of Russia. So it's not just Crimea, it's also all of those territories. And that's why I say this is so hard for the Ukraine side, and I don't minimize it. They have to withdraw from areas that they currently own, even in those 3 of those 4 oblasts especially. So it's not hard, but it also shows you that Russia has not changed at all in their terms here. No. And when you have Zelensky saying that, number one, we won't acknowledge Crimea de jure or de facto, and we'll kind of de facto acknowledge these others with the caveat that we're going to come back. But then, and what Peskov didn't mention there, and what we really wanted to ask the ambassador, is those 2 terms. What does it mean when you say demilitarization and denazification? How does Russia define those? Because it's not even just about withdrawing from those areas, but it's also about, once you've withdrawn, to demilitarize down to some level. The number that was kicked around by a Russian negotiator in December of last year was 85,000. So I wanted to see if that was still the case there. But it's something, and it's major, and it's like about a tenth of what they have right now. And then what does denazification mean? Does that just mean have a new election? Does that mean that some of the people who are in the, Banderites, I think they call them in the Russian side, and actually in the Ukraine side too, that I don't know, but that's part of the deal. And Putin specifically mentioned both of those at the end of that soundbite we played. So there apparently is a really, really high ask. And I don't know, Gary, it kind of sounds to me like, look, the deal is Russia's just going to keep fighting, because I think they make that offer on the table. But I can you see any way that Ukraine's going to accept that deal?
No. I mean, oh my gosh, has Zelensky moved an inch? Not that I see it at all. And even in his defiance, basically, he's not humbled in the least bit. If anything, his defiance has gotten stronger and more resilient. It seems, at least on camera, that's the way it appears. I don't imagine it's any different behind the scenes. But that's the image that he's putting forth, to everybody, and he still has his backing from the Europeans. So as far as he thinks, he's got his team still on his side. So even though Trump has been resistant to Zelensky, and they're throwing taunts back at one another, I don't see Zelensky backing down an inch, and I think he's got his team with him, and they're going to proceed further.
Yeah, and who was that we were talking to either yesterday or the day before that said that it looked like the Europeans were like wanting to hide in their basements and see if they could wait out Trump, then get a more pliable American president that would go back to war after that. Who was that we were talking to?
Boy, that is some kind of take. Could you imagine? I can't even imagine that. My gosh, to go underground like that in a sense.
Yeah. But they're wanting to hide too. They don't want to do anything that Trump wants to do. And then if you could throw up, Gary, that 7-point plan, that this is reportedly what Trump is wanting to talk about, just so people know. Let's compare the 2 plans. So this is what Trump is offering, is the recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, the de facto recognition of the other 4 oblasts, no joining NATO, a lifting of sanctions on Russia, resumption of economic relations between the U.S. and Russia, a minerals deal with Ukraine, and then shared control of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Now, those are hard, but those are a whole lot less bad from the Ukraine side than the one that I outlined from Putin and Peskov a few minutes ago. But here's the problem, and what do you think about this, Gary? I'm not sure that Russia would agree to some of those. I don't think they would agree to number 7 for sure. And this doesn't say anything about denazification or demilitarization.
Yeah, if you remember, just a couple of weeks ago, they touched upon this. I don't know if it was Rubio's team, the meeting that they had there, but they did. They not they danced around it, but there was some discussions regarding the plants, and you could tell that I don't think Putin's interested in releasing that into American sovereignty.
Yeah, and because it's so important. I mean, it has to do with obviously more than just the nuclear power generation, but it also is controls about. It used to be providing a lot of electricity to the southern part of Ukraine, and right now it's not providing electricity to anybody because it's offline, and it's I think it's it's controlled by the Russian army, but it also has UN inspectors and other nuclear watchdog people to make sure everything's operating safely, etc. But I think Russia would love to have that in their control so that from people on their side of the line, once this thing is over, that they can reconnect it and provide electricity to, what they would now call the new areas of Russia. But I'm not even sure Russia would agree to that. So Trump may find that Zelensky won't agree to it and that Putin won't agree to all of it. And so in either case, next week, this could have a very, very different nature.
Yeah, it's one more incredibly large sticking point that there's nobody's giving on either side. Nobody's giving in on that. So besides Crimea, then we've got that whole issue where maybe the minerals. There could be if you remember, I think even Putin mentioned the minerals at one point in time that there might be some kind of give and take with a mineral deal. So that was something that I think that could be negotiated. But the nuclear, obviously Crimea, no, and the nuclear power plant is a no also, I think.
And the four regions are for sure, because as Peskov said, that's already been intertwined into their constitution. So as far as they're concerned, that's already a past tense. It's not even something negotiated. It just exists. So they won't even consider it. But the question,
Dan, it's like, I'm sorry. It's like it's like any poker player. There's some guys, that's they play all or nothing, so they'll go all in, because they all these little losses don't matter, and then they'll go all in. And I think that's how Zelensky plays his hand, is all or nothing, so he's gonna go for it. That's why he's not backing down. He's got his team.
This isn't a gamble. This is just a loss of money.
No kidding.
Because a gamble has a shot at winning. Maybe you get some good cards. He ain't getting no good cards.
But Danny, in his mind, come on, there is freedom, there is liberty, there is the land of Ukraine that we must preserve. That's how he thinks.
I think, Gary, maybe keeping that same analogy there, that he's looking at these 5 cards in his hand, and he's imagining, 2 queens, 2 kings, and an ace, and it's really like 3s and 1 4 and a 7. And yet he looks at them, he's like going, yay, gamble it all, put all my chips in there. And then when he plays Danny, the cards, everybody's going to go, okay.
Danny, you know how you play things in your mind and you rehearse things and you remember things. I think he is just, inebriated with all of the standing ovations that he's been given over all the course of time.
So
and he still continues to hear, being told that he is the savior. He is the hero that everyone is looking up to. That's what's going on. How many he meets with more world leaders than I think Trump even does, not as big. I mean, some of these are small nations, but still at the same time, he's meeting dignitaries left and right. If you go to his blog, well, he has a blog on his website. If you go to the official Ukraine website, you should see, and his wife, the two of them are meeting everybody everywhere. Anybody that will dare come to them, they're happy to have, state dinners or whatever they call them over in Ukraine. Yeah. Ukraine. So, I think that's what's going on. So I think, they're feeding the monster in his head of that he will prevail.
Yeah, they had been. Remember when he addressed the joint session of Congress? He addressed the British Parliament. Actually, all kinds of parliaments on European soil. How about right after the big tussle in the White House, he goes over to Starmer, right? And Starmer, always, happy to have you, big guy, right? Welcome to 10 Downing Street. Come sit by the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that plays when the word call comes and it's like, all right, everybody put your cards on the table and we'll see who gets the pot. That stuff ain't going to go very far.
Nah.
But anyway, I guess we'll leave it right there for right now. We'll certainly be watching these events. Anything could change at any moment. And apparently we're literally within days from doing so. We'll certainly keep you up on all this. But in any case, appreciate you guys watching us today.
Yeah, thanks. Like and subscribe. We'll see you soon.